And up next, we got Joshua Culibao fighting, what's his name? Yilan. That's how you say it? Yilan. All right. So Joshua coming in here with the 8-1-1 record. Sole loss coming to Yilan Turner, a vicious knockout. He came in on short notice and he was stepping up a weight class, so we give that man a pass for that one. And his split draw that he had there was against Jourdain, which, in my opinion, that man won that fight. I had a bet on Jourdain and I was sweating bullets. Culibao should have definitely got that win. But yeah, other than that, the man has 8 fights, and they're all wins. There are a lot of stoppages. He only had one or 2 decisions out of all those wins. So the man's a finisher. When he came into the UFC, like I said, it was against Yilan Turner. He did look out of shape. He looked chunky, and it was just a bad look for him. He came in and got obliterated. And so his next time out against Jourdain, I almost just like instantly faded him, thinking that he was going to be that same guy. But he was down, at 45. And he looked great, man. He completely changed my mind. It's kind of almost like the same thing against Akshitov. How do you pronounce his name? Akshitov, the one that fought Tyson Nam, and then came and gave Sue Madarji his toughest test. Same kind of deal here, man. Culibao is coming back in and against Charles Jourdain, and man, Jourdain was like everybody's darling at that point, putting him in LA parlays, and I did as well. But Joshua came out there, dropped him in the first round, outstriked him in the second round, and then ended up, losing that third round, and that ultimately gave him, ended up getting him the draw. But I definitely think that was his fight to win. Other than that, I didn't really find too much tape of his earlier fights, but looking at it, there was a lot of low-level competition, and he pretty much did work whenever he did, come up against those opponents. So. Just the two fights that I seen, the Turner and the Jourdain, the man's got skills. He's a great striker, great counter striker, can, strike going forward, can strike going backwards, which is very important. And on the flip side with Yilan, or however you pronounce his name, this man's one of those Chinese fighters coming out of the UFC PI over there, and they don't even have this man's age listed, so who knows?
27.
27? Okay, it's probably 30.
Had to look that up. I could really do a deep dive on his age.
He's probably 32. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, this man's 19-6. A lot of. This is gonna be his first fight out of China. So all of his fights in China, the man's never had to take that flight to America and get acclimated and get adjusted and then fight. So that alone is a huge red flag. He's making his debut. And, the only fights that I did see him, it was like a kickboxing fight, which he did look like he had fairly decent strikes, but the competition that he was going against just looked, terrible. It didn't look like they had anything to offer him. It just looked like he was, there were nails out there, and that man was just swinging. So, the fight that I did see him fight, and it actually went some minutes, it was against Zhu Rong. And Zhu Rong was one of those other fighters coming out of the China PI, and he was the one I was least impressed by. So, that it just doesn't hold up too much. To make it short, man, I'm planning on putting Culibao in my parlays for sure.
Yeah, so for Culibao, he's coming off that draw, like you mentioned, with Jourdain in his last fight. And what was a crazy first round where they both had their moments. To me, it looked like Culibao definitely won those first 2 rounds and should have won that fight. So, yeah, that draw was a little crazy. Culibao, he does have nice kicks. I see him. He throws a lot of power shots. He likes to work the body too, which is something I'm impressed with. And his only loss to Yilan Turner, who's really a big lightweight. He's a big dude for a lightweight. And I believe, didn't they fight at 45?
No, they fought at 55.
They fought at 55. So now this is Culibao dropping down to 45.
Second fight at
45. And then if you notice with Culibao, if you ever see him in the southpaw stance, he's gonna throw a kick almost every time. He's a tough dude though, and he's a strong fighter. 8-1 and 1, and then on the other side with Yilan, the Wolverine coming out of the China PI, like you mentioned. Not much of tape. I also seen the one with him and Zhu Rong, another newcomer, which ended up ended kind of quickly. He caught him with that overhand right from Zhu Rong, and then had him wobbled, and then just hopped on him and got the finish. He got the job done. He did have, I believe it was 6 fights last year. did Yilan. So he's very active. He does love to stand and strike. This fight is going to be a good one to bet on to ending in a finish. I think this one has a good chance to get finished, but who knows, man. But I am also taking Culibao for the win. They have him at minus 260, and for Yilan, the Wolverine, at plus 200. So if you are feeling the China PI, one thing we can say is that those guys bring it. If you're coming from there, they are coming to war. So we do know that. But for the minus 260 and everything I've seen from Culibao, I definitely like him and will probably be adding him in one of my main parlays.
Yeah, I mean, as far as China's recent streak, this is gonna put it to 0-5. So if Carla comes up later in the card and does what she does, they're gonna be going 0-6 in these last few pay-per-views. So yeah, man, I couldn't be higher on Culibao here. Like I said, I was he was pretty much dead to me out of that after that Turner fight. After that was my debut of getting to know him, and then he completely turned my mind against that Jourdain fight. And so the man is, he showed that he wasn't that he wasn't really was that performance that he was putting on against Jalen Turner. So that wasn't his true self. He showed that and came back big time against that Jourdain fight. So I'm pretty much high on Joshua and Yilan. Yeah, man, the little bit of tape that I did see, not impressed, and more so Zhu Rong doing him in, which I'm not very impressed by him as well. So it looks like they're just fighting a lot of lower level competition, and I mean he definitely has the more experience, but
against two,
yeah, like you said, he's just fought 6 times this last year, and he's just racking up wins. It's like those are like amateur wins. It seems like so. But
then again, I mean, it could end up being like the what was it, the Beverly Hills Ninja from last one. Just fought a bunch of cans and ended up coming out, showing off. It could happen, like I said, but I just don't see it. And from the little bit of film I have seen, I wasn't too impressed with Yilan as well.
He's making his debut in the States, man. He has to take that flight, which is
and you're
huge
right.
flight.
Every time you mention that flight,
that takes shit
it
out
does.
of you.
You mention that a lot when it comes to the PI guys, and so far you're undefeated on that. I mean, it's definitely shows later in the fight.
They even say it. If you can catch one of their interviews where they're getting translators in it, they all attest to how bad it is, and especially if they're doing it for, like certain fighters, like the what was her name, the first one that fought Carnelossi. She mentioned it, and that was her first, like
Na Liang.
Yeah, Na Liang. She mentioned it, and she was like, "Oh, the only reason she wasn't, too overwhelmed by it is because she had a few fights in the States already." But for the other fighters that are coming over there for their first time, man, it's an X factor. So, with all that going into account, and then them having to come over here, and acclimate and all that good stuff, I feel like the world is against them at that point, and they just have to show out. And if they get the dub, good on them, but I don't see it happening, man. So that's why I'm going to be putting Joshua. He's going to be one of my anchors in my parlay for sure.
I agree. So it looks like we are both on Culibao on this fight. My minus 260, I believe that's a good one to take a stab at.